Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rishi Suri, and I'm as she said, I run one of India's oldest and largest Urdu newspapers called the Daily Milap. It's my privilege to moderate the session today, which is titled India and the Emerging World Order. Just a few ground rules before we start. After my brief opening remarks, I'll request my esteemed panelists to speak for a few minutes, after which we'll take questions from the audience. We're extremely privileged and honored to have such a distinguished panel with us here today. His Excellency Michael Pelletier, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of the United States of America in India. His Excellency Cesare Onestini, Chargé Affairs, Delegation of European Union to India. Now, India and the emerging world order. Till a few years ago, India had low visibility on the global political and especially the global economic front, considering our sheer size and resources. However, since the last decade, India appears to be writing a dynamic new future for itself. India's emerging economic status in Asia and on a global level is redefining its self-image and perception, leading to a new political and strategic role. In today's panel discussion, we will try and analyze the interests and motives that guide India's foreign policy and the strategies it has adopted, which have the potential to reshape the international order. India, traditionally a prominent leader of the South, is transcending that role now to play a larger global role, which is endorsed by both the United States and the European Union, and various other countries, big and small, in their respective strategic partnerships. It gives me great pleasure and really fills my heart with pride to say that today I see a strong India. And I think we will see an even stronger India over the coming years, mainly for two broad reasons. First, because India has a combination of strengths that most other countries do not: talent, ambition, scale, optimism, unity in diversity, a deep commitment to education, world-class excellence in areas like IT, medicine, and scientific research, a huge rising middle class, and a vibrant democracy. India has another asset too, our armed forces, which are highly capable and hugely respected by the Indian people they serve. Secondly, because our new Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set out a compelling vision to take India forward, and his government has a very strong mandate to do so. His foreign policy vision is inclusive and wants to make India not just a regional leader, but a truly global leader. Over the next few years, I expect to see India focus on a few points, and I'd really love to hear more from our speakers' point of views on this. Firstly, stability in its own region. India's strategic goal over the coming decade will be transformation. To further transform itself into a successful 21st century power through modernization and inclusive development. To do that, one very important thing India needs is peace on its borders and stability in the entire region, without which it cannot focus on making progress at home. That is why we are seeing the new government here pursuing great relations with our neighbors. We've had a few hiccups in recent times, as you probably know, but more or less we are pursuing this quite actively. Prime Minister Modi's invitation to all the SAARC leaders to attend his inauguration was a clear signal of intent and was applauded all over the world. His first few bilateral visits were very interesting, Bhutan and Nepal. And this really underlines the significance that he and his government attach to this region. So have the foreign minister's visits to Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and other near neighbors. Even as we speak, Prime Minister Modi is currently on a three-nation trip, strengthening bonds at the Indian Ocean region, with maritime cooperation being the main focus, and rightly so. But not just in the neighborhood, even beyond the South Asian region, I think we will see India pursue partnerships with key global players like the US and the EU who can help transform India. The leading role India has taken in the BRICS Forum and the formation of the BRICS Bank is really a very, very positive sign and shows a willingness to lead on a world stage. Another very important thing that I expect to see India do internationally over the coming years is pursue action with the rest of the international community to advance collective interests and make this world a better place for all. India is a part of several forums, and I would love to see them exploit these opportunities a lot more and use these forums for good. India is and has always been a responsible player on the world stage, a force for good, for stability, and for prosperity. Now, despite all the problems that plague India, which are many, and all the limitations that we face, which again are many, India has increasingly the ideas, the people, and the tools to shape the global order. In the immortal words of our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially, will India keep its tryst with destiny and emerge as one of the shapers of the emerging international order. I love to say this, and I'm very confident that we will. With that, I think I'd love to invite our first speaker, His Excellency Cesare Onestini from the European Union. As you wish.
Hello. Hi, and thanks for the invitation. Thank you very much for the introduction, and greetings to all of you and to my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be invited to give a view. I've been in India for just over 6 months in my new role, so you might think I'm a bit presumptuous to come here and talk to you about the role of India in the global order. So I will offer some as countries and states coming together, sharing competence, and deciding politically to bring things together. And it's this process that is generating within the European Union some dynamics and some questions about the position of the euro or so. Why do I say this in a session about India? I say this because over the past 10 years, the relationship between the European Union and India has moved up in terms of strategic interests, reflecting the way in which the European Union has also changed its role in international relations. So we are moving together in the shaping of the global order that our moderator has indicated, and trying to bring our own visions. The challenges we have in this 21st century, as we see every day, from environment to terrorism to others, do not know any borders. Such challenges can only be dealt with multilateral solutions, working together across national borders and bringing together goodwill of all the ones who want to shape and find new solutions. It is because of this, I think, that the European Union has a bit in its DNA the question, the search, the quest for multilateral solutions, and coming together with partners that have similar approaches, we can really meet these challenges of this new century. The European Union, as you know, has been quite involved in areas to do with climate change. We are now getting more and more involved in areas of international peace and securities. We have a strong internal market, so trade and economic liberalization are areas in which the European Union will always try to develop ties with similar-minded partners. We also believe in regional integration as a value, and that's why also in our dealings with India and this area, we always look at the Southeast Asian area, and we welcome very much what we see as new developments in the past year or so in terms of regional integration in South Asia moving forward. Multilateral solutions require having an approach, having a dream, having a vision. And it's therefore important, as we have both on the European Union side and in India, new administrations, it's comforting to see that on both sides we are starting with very similar political visions. In Europe, we have a new leadership that has taken over the European Union presidency just before Christmas. We have President Tusk and President Juncker of the Commission, which share this competence. Here in India, you have an administration which is coming into its first year. When we look at the agendas of the two administrations, there is a strong echo in terms of focus on growth, jobs, manufacturing, focus on stability, and on projecting these values and these ideas onto global issues and global strategies. So we are very much confident that there is a new beginning in terms of the relations that we are building between the European Union and India here. Looking at the role of India in Asia, obviously, we also see India as a bridge between many of the priorities that we have as European Union and the rest of the continent here, not simply because of the size of the country, and as was rightly reminded, the historical significance of India in terms of relations with many partners, but also because India has a new energy to bring to these global challenges that we want to face together. I was posted in New York for a while. I saw there the importance of having a partner like India move on some of these global challenges. It is very significant when we talk about issues of global governance that we are able to have honest and frank discussions looking at the ways in which global institutions are also in need of reform. And I think there, as European Union, we are also trying to bring our own input into that. The second point I'd like to emphasize in terms of our expectations of working together is how we see the question of economic development, trade and development, trade and human rights, trade and sustainability, all these questions that are linked to a trade agenda. As I mentioned briefly, the European Union is indeed a bloc that has been built on the idea of economic interdependence. We overcame the divisions of the horrors of the past century in terms of wars that have ripped through our continent through a very simple formula. We decided that we had to put economic capabilities together, interlocking countries, and that will generate the need to then work more politically across borders. That has been a formula that has been successful well beyond anybody's expectations in the 1950s, and we now are where we are. But again, this is to say, when we look at the international order, we believe that there is an opportunity through trade, economic exchange, and growth to shape values as well. And it's important to keep this agenda, which is growing in importance, at the center also of our attention. When we we have been engaged with India in important negotiations on a free trade agreement for about 8 years now. These negotiations are now on the table of the new administrations, and we're really confident that we can make progress. In a similar vein, as you know, we as European Union are negotiating with our partners in the United States, the transatlantic, on the transatlantic trade deal. All of these are for us parts of a development that should bring economic growth back to the fore in a number of our strategic relationships as we move on. Obviously, as I mentioned, trade is not trade for the sake of trade or just economic growth, but it's trade which is linked also to a number of other policies, and sustainability, human rights, and environment are part of the agenda. And these are issues on which we are very seriously engaging, trying to develop policies that help promote the agendas. This is obviously a challenge. A country like India has a strong domestic agenda, and the link between the domestic agenda and the international trade agenda requires a lot of mutual understanding and a lot of talking to each other, but that's why the strategic partnership we have is really pushing forward this dialogue. And lastly, and complementing this point, I think when we look at the positioning of India in the coming years, we see an India which is more willing to engage, more willing to take positions on the global stage. We see an India also which is willing to bring its own history and its own experience as a basis of finding solutions to global challenges. We are very much welcoming that, and I think we want to accompany that as much as we can with a people-to-people dimension. There is a need in our thinking, in the way we work, to develop this and strengthen it. We are working very closely with partners here to promote the university exchange dimension, working together at the level of cultural and educational exchanges. I really believe this is part of the opening process that we are doing in terms of the European Union looking at the new Asian realities, understanding the new Asian realities, and building the bridges that we need, and vice versa, seen from India, looking at other partners, maybe differentiating partners in some areas. In terms of education, this is quite obvious. Educational courses in Europe are now moving in most countries to post degrees in taught in English, opening up new possibilities for the exchanges, and we see that this is developing a new understanding and a new role. So in terms of the people-to-people dimension of the relationship, we see a possibility to really move forward and go on from there. I've highlighted these three areas. They need to work on the multilateral arena together. They need to work on the trade agenda as a springboard for other policies, and they need to focus on people-to-people. And I believe these will be the pillars of the partnership and strategic partnership we have between the European Union and India in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was very interesting indeed. Could I request His Excellency Michael Pelletier to please speak?
Sure. Thank you very much, and thank you all for giving us this opportunity today. I want to talk also in threes. I'm going to talk about three documents that I think underline where the US and India are as we move into the brave new world, and then talk about three ways in which I think they're important. But firstly, I want to just say how exciting I think these days are, and how exciting and promising the future is for all of us. Looking at what's happening in India and in the region, looking, for me, obviously, particularly at where things stand in terms of India and the United States working together and developing our partnership. I think it's just a really incredibly exciting time. I've been working and coming and going to and from India over the past 26 years. And I think the energy and the optimism that we are all working through right now are really unprecedented, and I think make for a very exciting time to work on this particular portfolio. The starting point, or maybe the signal point for that, for me, was President Obama's visit as the chief guest of honor for Republic Day. Unprecedented to have an American president, a sitting American president, come to India twice in his term. Unprecedented to have the United States be the guest of honor at Republic Day and go to that parade and be honored in that way. And that really, I think, sent an important symbolic symbol of where India and the US are in their partnership. During that visit, building on Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States in the fall, we issued a number of statements which sort of, to me, sum up or give us actually the work plan moving forward into the future. And I just want to briefly talk about those three documents. One was the Delhi Declaration of Friendship, something that we don't have with very many countries, the United States, that formula of a formal declaration of friendship. In that, we declared, quote, that each step we take to strengthen the relationship is a step towards shaping international security, regional and global peace, prosperity, and stability for years to come. That sets out a very ambitious, a very aspirational, and I think a very hopeful goal for India and the United States. We took a number of steps to make that concrete, to make it real, most notably, I think, taking what was our strategic dialogue, which was a very important dialogue between India and the United States, and upgrading it to a strategic and commercial dialogue that's even broader. For us, that sort of 2+2 is something we don't have with very many countries, and now we have one with India. Our ambassador talks about it as being a partnership that's strategic plus. We do even more, and it's even deeper. The second document that came out of the President's trip here to India was a joint vision for the Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean regions, where we set forth publicly our shared view of the Indo-Pacific and of the region and where it's going. And again, I'll give one quote. Our agreement that a closer partnership between the United States and India is indispensable to promoting peace, prosperity, and stability in the regions. We talk about prosperity, we talk about security, particularly maritime security, and we talk about our shared values as democracies in the world. Similarly, I think in terms of shared values and a shared outlook, we look at how India's Act East policy and our rebalance towards the Asia-Pacific really work incredibly well together. As countries of Asia trade together, work together in an open, fair, rules-based system, I think that's good for societies, it's good for working people, it's good for the bottom line, and it's good for all of us. The third document I will mention is the joint statement, which was titled Shared Effort, Progress for All, that came out at the end of the visit. And frankly, when I looked at it, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but as we published it at the end of the President's visit, I was exhausted all over again to see just how many things India and the United States are doing together as we enumerated the different dialogues, the different MOUs, the different visits, the different areas of priority where India and the United States are cooperating. It's exciting, and it's also, in a sense, exhausting, just how broad and how deep our joint efforts are. As I said, I think these three documents do a great job of summarizing where India and the United States are sharing together our efforts towards creating the prosperous and promising vision of the future. I think that defining partnership of the 21st century, which is what President Obama has called it, can be really good for all of us and for all of you in a number of ways, and I want to just talk about three particular areas. One is the economics and the business of it. Shared economic growth between our two countries is a crucial element of our partnership. It's something that Cesare spoke of as well. When economies grow, we can become, we think, a really powerful engine for global growth across the world. I want to say as well, being here in India particularly, that American business makes in India and will continue to make in India and looks to make even more in India, creating great opportunities, we believe, both for India and for the United States. On the defense front, during the President's visit, building on advances we made during Prime Minister Modi's visit again, we talked about coming forward with 4 projects and working groups under the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, an area where we will actually move from just trading together to actually developing and producing together. 2 other examples to give. My ambassador was recently in Gujarat, and he visited a new Ford factory there in Gujarat, where we're producing state-of-the-art vehicles, not just for India, but for the Asian market, and where hundreds and eventually thousands of skilled workers will be employed. It gives Ford, one of the most iconic American companies, a great platform across Asia, based here, not good just for Gujarat, for India, for the United States, but for the region. Similarly, on a recent trip to Pune, we went to a GE manufacturing facility where different product lines are being developed and workers are being trained to develop these and share these, again, throughout not only India, but the region. And what's interesting there is the innovation and the development that's going on is, again, global, where you have people in the United States, people in India working and developing together. I would also note that 25% of the workforce there are women, as we all work together to help empower all of India's people to contribute to development. I also want us to talk for a minute about something, again, that my colleagues here on the stage have talked about, which is how India and the United States, how India and the world can work together to help development not just in India, but across the globe. And one of the things that I think is really exciting in terms of India and America's partnership right now is our triangular partnerships working on development in other parts of the world, where we look at development solutions that work in India and talk about how we can scale those up, how we can work together to apply those in other parts of the world. So we work together on food security in Africa. We work together on improving the livelihoods and empowering women in Afghanistan. And we have a very strong dialogue on how we can continue to expand those joint efforts and move them forward. In November, we signed the India-US Statement of Guiding Principles on Triangular Cooperation for Global Development, so that we can formalize and continue to push forward those joint Indian-American efforts in other parts of the world. Similarly, we work very hard to encourage and support Indian innovation in development areas, where Indian innovations, which are often very technology appropriate and very cost appropriate for other parts of the developing world, can be used across the globe. One example that we talk a lot about is the Jaipur foot and the Jaipur knee, where simple but robust, affordable mobility solutions can be used to help physically handicapped people. We have a Millennium Alliance, which is a public-private partnership that helps to leverage private funding and private support for those sorts of innovative development solutions. The last area I want to talk about is energy. If you look at some of the development challenges that are here and some of the business challenges that are here, you know how important energy is, but we also know how important the environment is. And we really salute India's efforts and India's very ambitious goals towards looking at alternative energies, renewable energy, clean energy, in order to energize that development moving forward. We have a very successful and growing partnership with India called the Partnership to Advance Clean Energy, PACE, that has both a deployment arm and a research arm, where we look at developing solutions together and then deploying those solutions together. We have a very robust and expanding policy dialogue looking at how we can work together to use more alternative energies, develop smart grids, look at biofuels, look at solar, etc. I know my Secretary of State just recently talked about India's very laudable, very ambitious goal to use solar, looking at increasing India's solar target to 100 gigawatts by 2022. We're very proud to be a partner in India's efforts, and I think India can really be a leader in terms of setting those ambitious goals looking forward. So I think there are so many areas where India and the US, where Indians and Americans are working towards realizing this shared vision of the future, of the new world into which we are emerging. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be part of that. I think it's incredibly exciting for all of you to think about how you want to help take India forward with the US, with the Europeans, with the rest of the world, with the region as a leader in that world. There are so many areas that we haven't talked about yet this morning that we could also talk about, whether it's health, whether it's defense, whether it's security and counterterrorism. The list is really endless. I've chosen just 3, but I know that there are so many more areas that we can talk about. So again, thank you for letting me be here and be part of this conversation, and I look very much forward to question and answer and a back and forth to fill in the conversation even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was fascinating again, and very encouraging words from both our panelists. And it's hearing these things that makes one realize and see that India is on the right track. Now, we're just a little short on time, and we need to wrap up soon. So we'll just take a few questions from the audience. If we could start, if you could just put your hands up, and the mic will come to you. There's a question right there. Could you please introduce yourself for just a second before you do?
Given the fact that India is emerging as already a strategic ally for US and European Union, what about aligning?
Could you also just say who your question is for, please?
I mean, it's for Michael and Cesare.
All right.
So how about aligning India in the UN Security Council as well as World Trade Organization, aligning with India's position, given the fact that what India can contribute as an emerging world power or a strategic ally for US as well as European Union?
I think, Cesare, would you like to take that?
And that is straight coming to the point.
Well, for me, there is an easy answer when we talk about UN and Security Council. The European Union is not a part of that, but our members are, so the easy way out is that. Obviously, when I hinted at the fact that we need to have a reflection about the way in which global institutions are being governed, that's part of the conversation. It is true that there are different views out there, but my own personal assessment is that there is more convergence now as we move forward to what options are we really looking at trying to move across. Our own member states in the European Union are quite committed to finding viable solutions. As you know, our own member states have different roles also within the United Nations or some of these bodies, so they are very much engaged themselves in this. But I think what's important to me, beyond the question of the composition of these governing bodies, is the role that they play and the way in which the members on the boards manage to find agreement. And I think if you look at the past few years, there is a convergence of views which is emerging and which is comforting on some of the global challenges that we touched upon. So I hope that that will be the final drive towards redefinition of some of these issues, and will very much be part of that conversation.
We are on the UN Security Council, and I think the President made it very clear during his first visit to India when he spoke to the Parliament that we very much support the possibility of India joining in a reformed UN Security Council. Discussions about the ways that would work and where the UN wants to go, I think are ongoing. But I think on all of these multilateral issues, you have to remember that they are multilateral. And so the key to making multilateral institutions work are conversations, is discussion. And I think where one of the things that's happening right now between India and the United States, and I imagine between India and other countries, is that those discussions about various positions, whether it's on trade, whether it's on politics, whether it's on regional issues, those discussions are really very robust and very vibrant. And I think that is what's really exciting, is how does India talk with the rest of the world? How do India and the United States, for my case, talk together about how do we see the region? How do we see economic issues? How do we see trade issues? How do we see intellectual property rights issues? No two countries are ever going to share the same point of view 100% of the time. Goodness knows the EU and the US have had some discussions about trade from time to time, but the point is to have the discussion, to go to the table and exchange points of view. And that right now is very strong and very robust, and is something that we look very much forward to. We have regional dialogues, for example, with India on Central Asia, but also on issues like the Middle East, on East Asia. We have trilateral discussions between India, Japan, and the US. It's those multilateral conversations and exchanging points of view where I think you can move things forward, and that is very robust and very hopeful.
Thank you. We just have time for one more question. I saw a hand going up right here in front. So.
Hello.
All right, so we can go there. Yeah.
Hello. It's good to know that our relationship with the US is really strengthening. But this is started a little late. And how do we ensure that this sustains, for a longer period now?
So actually, I think we've certainly seen a real reinvigoration of the India-US partnership, but I think it's also important to know and to recognize that the India-US partnership is something that has bipartisan support in the United States and has for quite a while. We recently welcomed a congressional delegation led by the chairman of our Foreign Affairs Committee on the House of Representatives side, Chairman Royce. There was a bipartisan committee, a bipartisan delegation with both Republicans and Democrats who came because they believe in the India-US partnership. That bipartisan support in the United States has also been true in India, where a number of parties, a number of political parties have supported that relationship. Under UPA, the former government, now under the BJP-led government, that partnership has continued to move forward. I think we've seen a real reinvigoration of it and some real concrete details of how we're going to move forward since the Prime Minister's trip to Washington in the fall and since the President's trip here for Republic Day. But we've been moving in the right direction for a very long time. And so I think the question is, how do we keep up the increased pace? How do we keep up those new initiatives and make sure that we keep moving forward at this increased pace?
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry. I know there are quite a few questions, but unfortunately we'll have to cut it short and leave it at that. I'd like to thank His Excellency Cesare Onestini and His Excellency Michael Pelletier once again for their fascinating comments, and thank you everyone for your questions. And I'd also finally like to thank Guru for organizing this event, and he's always been true to his name. And thank you, Guru.